I'm very happy to present our next company presenting here, Ascelia Pharma, where the CEO Magnus Corfitsen will walk through the company and give you a presentation. So without further ado, I will leave the floor to you, Magnus. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation to present here at your healthcare conference. So I look forward to presenting Ascelia Pharma to you and updating you on our progress that we have made recently. Please move to the next slide. So cancer is a major healthcare burden. So annually, millions of people are diagnosed with cancer and living with cancer. More than $150 billion are being spent on healthcare therapy every year. And the main growth within that segment is within orphan oncology, meaning healthcare, you could say small patient groups that need better healthcare. That is exactly the focus that we have in Ascelia Pharma. So we are dedicated to improving treatments within the orphan oncology space by developing novel drugs that have clear development and market pathway. We have 2 programs in our clinical pipeline. One is in an ongoing phase 3 clinical program, and one is preparing for phase 2. We're listed on Nasdaq Stockholm. We're based in Malmö, Sweden, and we have an international team of very experienced people to lead our company and develop our products to patients. And we have a solid financial position, as reported, 169 million SEK as of last quarter. Please move to the next slide. So what you can see here is the portfolio overview, and if you click forward so that we will have the Mangoral line as well, maybe 2 clicks. So Mangoral is a novel diagnostic drug. It's given to patients before they go into an MRI scanner to look for cancer in the liver. In particular, liver metastasis, which in Europe and US comprise more than 90% of all cancer in the liver. We are targeting a patient segment. I'll come back to the details later. We're targeting a patient segment that have no safe and effective product today. That means that once Mangoral comes to the market, there will be no competing product. We're targeting a 350 to 500 million annually, which is a very attractive commercial opportunity for us. Mangoral has orphan drug designation from the FDA. And as mentioned, we have the phase 3 trial ongoing and expect to report results in the second half of next year and a launch in the end of 2022 or beginning of 2023 in the US. The other program we have is a novel chemotherapeutic tablet formulation. This is Oncoral. We completed phase 1 with very encouraging results and are planning for the phase 2 study in treatment of gastric cancer. And we are expecting to shed more light on the development program and start the phase 2 study next year. Let's move to slide number 4. And here I will be moving into the presentation of Mangoral and go in more depth. So as mentioned, Mangoral is targeting liver visualization with MRI, and it's the most important clinical application is liver metastasis. Liver metastasis is when cancer starts in one organ and spreads, metastasizes to the liver. The liver is the most frequent organ for metastasis after the lymph node, and very often also the first site of metastasis. Often it's also the cause of death in these patients. So this is a very important parameter and a factor when treating cancer patients. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see that liver metastases are very prevalent, unfortunately. In colorectal cancer patients, 70% of these patients will have liver mets over the course of the disease. For metastatic breast cancer, it's 72%, and other cancer types also frequently metastasize to the liver. So please move to the next slide. So what is the clinical practice on managing liver metastasis? So the most important thing is to detect and localize. The most sensitive method to do that non-invasively is to use an MRI imaging procedure. And to maximize the value of that, an imaging drug or contrast agent is given to the patient. The currently available contrast agents for liver MRI are based on a toxic heavy metal called gadolinium, which improves the image quality, and that is what is available today. So if you click one forward, then you can see the treatment, what is the outcome of the images. And essentially the oncology board, the tumor board, are then looking at the patient, looking at the extent of disease, comparing with other parameters, and decide whether they can do surgically remove the tumors, localized therapies like ablation or radiation, or drug therapy. And if you click one forward, you can see that the decision making is essential for the outcome of the patient. So early accurate detection enables, in many patients, surgical removal. And as you can see here, surgical removal of liver metastasis in colorectal cancer increases 5-year survival from 6% to 46%. And in order to make that surgical procedure possible, it's required to have early detection and accurate detection, and that's why Mangoral is an important product. So if we're moving to slide number 7, you can see today patients with a normal kidney function or slightly reduced kidney function, they will get a gadolinium-enhanced imaging drug. Those with poor kidney function, they have no safe and effective product available because gadolinium can cause what is known as nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, which is a chronic and potentially deadly fibrotic condition of the skin, joints, and potentially inner organs, leading to, in those cases, leading to death. That's why all gadolinium products, all of them have this black box warning, and therefore we are targeting exactly that patient population with poor kidney function that are at risk from gadolinium. That's why when you look at the slide to the right, you see the right side of the slide, you see that going forward, we will not compete with gadolinium. They will continue to be the product of choice for the normal kidney function. But those with poor kidney function, which is roughly 3-4% of the population, where Mangoral will be a safe and effective product, we believe, and that's where we will be the new gold standard. Moving on to the next slide, you can see here an actual T1 weighted image of a liver MRI. On the chart, you see to the left-hand side, you see a slice of the liver. You see some bile ducts and blood vessels. So this looks like a perfectly healthy liver. On this image, this is the quality standard of care in our target population. And if the operator will click once, then you can, to the right-hand side of the slide, see this patient from one of our clinical studies after being dosed with Mangoral. You can see all the healthy liver tissue turning white, and that's because Mangoral goes into those cells, and that provides a different level of enhancement on the MRI scan. If the operator can press one more time, then we will have a red circle here, something that turns out to be a metastasis, which is missing to the picture on the left. So in this case, in this patient, this metastasis would have been missed. It would have been found later when it had grown so much, but grown a lot, but then surgical removal might not be possible. So this is the difference that Mangoral can make for a patient. Early detection enables surgical removal, leading to better health outcomes for the patient. If you move to slide number 9, we can see the overview of our clinical activities. We are doing 3 studies as of now. We're doing the Sparkle study, which is a global registration-enabling phase 3 study, which is a traditional pivotal study. I'll come into the design on the next slide. So we're also doing a supportive study, hepatic impairment, where we're looking at patients with, you could say, impaired liver function, and look at the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics there. That study dosed the first patient a few weeks ago and is ongoing as well. And then we have the food effect study, because Mangoral is an oral drug. It's a powder mixed with water, which the patient will drink. We are looking at the interaction. What happens if the patient has had any food in advance of taking Mangoral? What are the effects? So again, a standard study. So moving to the next slide, we have a very strong data package for our product. We have completed 6 clinical studies to date, and we have a very consistent safety and efficacy profile. We also done what we call a blind read. We had Professor Brendan Nelson from Duke University, an expert in this field, review all the images from all of our clinical trials, as well as the compassionate use program at Herlev Hospital in Denmark. And the findings were reported at major scientific conferences. So if the operator will click once, you can see the results. 33% more lesions detected with Mangoral versus unenhanced MRI. And on some very important parameters like delineation, how sharp are the edges, and conspicuity, the brightness of the healthy tissue versus the tumor tissue. We had highly significant results. So operator, please click one time more, and we can see to the right-hand side that the phase 3 registration enabling study, Sparkle, that is ongoing. We have taken the results from our previous clinical studies and put into the phase 3 program, which we have discussed with both the FDA and the EMA. And we believe that if this study is successful, together with the rest of our clinical documentation, that we can get an approval. This is 200 patients in a global study, and the primary endpoint is lesion visualization. That is, if the operator will click one more time, actually 2 more times, then we will see that there is a strong link between the very significant effect we got in the bind read to the endpoint, primary endpoint we have in the phase 3. So from that perspective, we think the risk of surprising results, negative surprising results, is relatively low. What we have also agreed, and what makes medical sense, is that Mangrel will be compared with an unenhanced MRI. So essentially, when you saw the slide with the images I showed you just a few minutes ago, you will see that the right-hand side will be compared to the left-hand side. So based on that information, we will expect to see a lot stronger brightness, conspicuity, and the delineation we also expect to be much clearer. It's a short follow-up time, 72 hours. It's essentially for safety follow-up, and each patient will be their own control. So there's no randomization in this global phase 3 study. It will be first the patient will do an unenhanced MRI, and then they will do an Mangrel enhanced MRI, and they will be compared before and after. Statistically, tremendous difference. Moving on to slide 11. We've done a lot of work on the commercial side and are continuing that. We're ramping up a lot in our pre-commercial and pre-launch activities. So we're targeting a $350 to $500 million market, and essentially targeting the roughly 280,000 patients in Europe, US, and Japan that have poor kidney function where gadolinium-based products are not recommended. These patients will have scans both for initial diagnosis, but also for monitoring response to treatment and surveillance in case to look if cancer has come back following positive treatment. We've also done extensive payer analysis and understanding the health economics of Mangrel, and we believe a price between $1,500 to $3,000 per dose of Mangrel is you could say a fair market value, where we're providing benefit and cost savings and better care in the healthcare system, and also making a solid commercial opportunity for Ascelia Pharma. This translates into a $350 to $500 million market on an annual addressable basis. And the final slide on Mangrel in this case, in this presentation here, is where we're delving deep into doing the launch plans as we speak. So we have done a lot of work in the US and also in Europe and Asia, looking at the size, the you could say the sites that will use this product, and believe 10, 20 employees in our sales force could cover the US market, for instance. So this is some ongoing work. We're very encouraged what we see. We get very strong responses from the clinical community on our product. So this, if you move to slide number 13, we are changing gears into Oncoral. We also are slightly low on time. I'll move ahead fast here. So Oncoral is our other program. It's a patented tablet formulation of irinotecan. Irinotecan is a chemotherapeutic agent, has been on the market for a number of years and known to be very effective in treating cancer, but also significant side effects. Irinotecan today is available in an intravenous version, so it's patient go to the hospital, get a needle and a flow with the drug for 90 minutes to 120 minutes, and they will get a massive dose of irinotecan, which very often leads to significant side effects in the first couple of days after dosing, when the body is full of irinotecan. So With this formulation, we are doing several things. I mean, obviously, from a patient perspective, you'd rather take a tablet at home rather compared to going to the hospital, sit in an hour and a half and 2 hours for an infusion. The other point is that we are doing, we believe, potentially a better safety profile. So when the patients are getting this massive dose that is expected to last for 2 weeks in the patient, this exposure gives them, as mentioned, a lot of side effects. Daily dosing will give them a much lower peak concentration and will be a much more manageable side effect. And thirdly, if this is a patient responding who is very sensitive to irinotecan and has very toxic reactions, you can stop dosing immediately because you don't do any subsequent dosing. Whereas if patient get the infusion, it will stay in the body. There's no way to take it out of the body. You need to wait until it has gone out in the natural way. So we think that's a very strong value proposition. And also, as cancer therapies are very much in combination, we think Oncoral can be used in all oral cancer chemo combinations. So we have very encouraging results in the phase 1 program, phase 1A, phase 1B, both in monotherapy and in combination therapy with capecitabine, another oral anti-cancer agent. And we are now preparing the phase 2 trial design and working with the top-tier KOL group that, and hopefully we expect to share more news on the phase 2 trial design later this year. So moving on to the next slides, just making a status. If we're moving to slide number 16, our priorities for this year is obviously we got the first patient enrolled in Sparkle, which is a good achievement. Also, the first patient was dosed a few weeks ago in the hepatic impairment study, and we're continuing working on our clinical development during the COVID-19 situation, which is also impacting our studies a little bit, which is why we revised the timelines and expect results second half of 2021. Our pre-launch activities are very much ongoing. We are not that far away from a launch, and that is moving forward with full speed. And as mentioned, we are also preparing the trial design and the plan for the phase 2 of Oncoral. So moving on to slide number 17, which is my last slide. So really summarizing on Ascelia Pharma and the investment opportunity. So we're addressing unmet medical needs within orphan oncology with products that have a clear development and market pathway with a strong positioning and value proposition to payers, patients, and doctors. So we have Mangoral, the only product targeting a $350 to $500 million annual addressable market with orphan drug designation and results expected second half of next year. And Oncoral, which is a novel patented improved formulation of a well-known, widely used chemotherapeutic agent, and where we think there's a tremendous potential in the treatment of gastric cancer. So that was my final slides, and we'll be happy to take questions.
Much, Magnus. So we'll do a quick Q&A session here then. So could you talk a bit more about the gadolinium brain accumulation issue and how that might provide upside potential for Mangoral? I think all investors might not be very familiar with that concept and how it could be important for you.
Yeah, no, excellent question. So, I mean, we are addressing patients with poor kidney function. That's because that is leading to nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, which can kill the patient. There is another issue which you bring up here that has been, a rising concern within the last 5 years, which is even patients with perfectly healthy kidneys. After one dose of gadolinium, some of that gadolinium will accumulate in certain parts of the body. That has been known for decades. But the news that it accumulates in the brain as well is new information. And this is obviously causing a lot of concern because you don't want the toxic heavy metal to be in your brain. The health authorities have added additional warnings to all gadolinium products to describe this and have requested manufacturers to do more research. The European authorities have actually suspended the use of some gadolinium agents that are more likely to accumulate in the brain, which is, you could say yet another safety concern on gadolinium. And this is why Mangoral, which is a non-gadolinium agent, is a very attractive opportunity here. So we're following this area very well and very closely, and we're also getting, you would say, strong interest from the clinical community, even the patient community, in terms of having a non-gadolinium product that could help these patients. So potentially, down the road, once more data is available on the health risk of brain accumulation, that could be a potential expansion for Mango. But for the time being, we focus on our core indication, the orphan indication, patients with poor kidney function.
Excellent. And do you have, can you share any data in terms of the size of that opportunity, what it could bring in terms of market volume and in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously very much depends on the health risk posed by the brain accumulation, but we're targeting 3-4% of the overall population, and that's a market worth $350 to $500 million annually with our pricing assumptions on the value we provide. Obviously, if gadolinium turns out to be, you would say, if we're going beyond the 3-4%, then the market is astronomical, if you will.
Interesting. And looking at potential partnerships for launch in Europe and the rest of the world for Mangoral, what type of partner would you view as ideal? Would that be a pharma company, diagnostics company, MRI manufacturing? And could you talk a bit about your strategy there?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we are doing a lot of pre-commercial work, launch plans. Because we're really, you would say, the most knowledgeable people in the world around Mangoral and the opportunity. This market has not existed before we came along. Now we're basically building this market, which also means that we have an information advantage. So we are doing payer interviews and KOL interviews and mapping this with our friends in the clinical community to see the opportunity, and that's will be part of our, you would say, our partnering package when we look for partners. In terms of the partners, then it's important that for them that they understand the product and the value it can bring, and they have access to doctors. They have the capabilities to ensure a good price, and somebody that we are happy to work with, because it's even if we partner, we have, you would say, the global information, the global leadership in terms of the medical profile of the drug. So that will be an ongoing relationship. It's not just sending the program to somebody else. So we are, as we speak, we are creating more value, better understanding, which puts us in an even better negotiation position versus this partners.
Excellent. So, and also I noticed that you require quite a slim sales force for the US market, approximately 15 to 20 reps. But still, I noticed there was quite a big sort of population that you need to address in terms of physicians. Could you talk a bit about how the concentration of the end customers?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So essentially, a sales rep have, a number of contacts. What we're targeting is radiologists in the first wave, you would say high volume radiology prescribers that see the majority of the patients. We also, on those sites, on those hospitals, we're looking, those would typically be at the major hospital, the nephrology unit, and typically also a hematology unit. We can then track, and we're tracking on the databases what is the referral pattern from the major hospitals to the imaging clinic in the hospital, freestanding imaging clinics, so we can really map down in amazing detail on the numbers and who are the important radiologists that we need to target. So that's when we're doing the math in terms of what we believe is required. That's we continue to see that number being the right number of the Salesforce sites.
All right, excellent. So just a final wrapping up question from my side. I noticed there was an interesting transaction last summer where the molecular PET agent developer Blue Earth Diagnostics were sold to Italian Bracco Imaging in a $450 million US deal. What do you think Bracco Imaging saw in Blue Earth, and do you see any similarities between Ascelia in terms of the product there?
Yeah, no, it's a good question and a very interesting transaction. So Blue Earth Diagnostics, for those that are not familiar with it, developed a novel diagnostic drug, imaging drug, for prostate cancer. And They launched themselves in US and Europe, and 2.5 years after launch, they had a revenue of more than $100 million and were then acquired by Bracco. I think what is interesting to see is that the major players in the imaging field, which outside Bracco is also GE Healthcare, Bayer, and Guerbet, a French company. Those are the 4 major global players. They see some pressure on the top line and are looking for probably for growth opportunities. And I think Blue Earth Diagnostics was definitely one significant growth opportunity. If we look across the landscape of new high-value growth opportunities in the diagnostic imaging space, I think Mangoral is one that is very much alone and leading the late-stage development field.
Excellent. So in the interest of time, we'll have to round it up there. But thank you so much, Magnus, for participating today, and wish you the best of luck with the clinical program going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.